Social network apps are rich with features that bring communities of people together. From posting content to engaging with other users, social network apps are highly interactive. And building an app like this in Bubble can feel a little overwhelming at first if you don't know where to start. So in this video, we're going to go through key features you'll typically find in a social network app, and we'll even jump into a Bubble editor so that you can see how to get started building them. Let's start by going through a quick overview of our example dashboard we've put together here for a social network application. It's got a little bit of everything in terms of the features we want to talk about today. So on the left-hand side, we have our menu of items to go to different screens within the application. That's very common. You'll find that in any type of app, just any kind of global navigation. At the top of the screen here, we have a personalized welcome message to identify the current user by their first name. We're also going to show the count of the number of people that the current user is following, as well as the number of people following them. We have a quick action button here so that they can create a new post to add to the feed. You see that this opens up a pop-up. They can upload an image, type in any text content related to it. They can decide to discard this creation or go ahead and publish it. A new post will get added to this feed here, which is sorted in reverse chronological order. So the newest post is going to be at the top here. Now at the bottom here, we're seeing some engagement buttons. So I can choose to like or maybe unlike a post. You see how the count changes. It's just keeping track of how many likes it has overall. Given that I'm the same person, clicking on this is just going to either increase or decrease by one. And same thing for the comments here. If I click on the comments, it'll keep track of the counts. Now you notice when I clicked on this, it changed my right side panel over here so that, if there's lots of comments, we can see a thread going there. So if I were to add a new comment, this is a great post like this, click on send. Now it's going to start my thread of comments. And because I created this comment, I can choose to delete it if I want. I can also go back to my main view there. And then we have a share button, which will open up a quick copy to clipboard link. We have an input here where you can copy it from there as well, so that you can share the link with other folks. And then on the right-hand side, this is sort of part of the main dashboard view. I'm seeing a log of all of my notifications. The icons here indicate the type of notifications. We'll talk about this in more detail. But basically I can see who the notification is coming from, the time that has passed, and I can also mark any notifications as seen here. Notice that that bold goes away when I click on that button. First feature we'll talk about is the post. This is typically the data set that the entire application is centered around. So a user will come in and submit content. They'll type something in, or maybe they upload an image. They may provide a caption with it. Other users may be able to favorite it, like it, comment on it, right? Engage with the post in some way. And typically these posts are placed on a feed of some sort, whether it is a private post or a public post or one that's shared with a specific group of users. This is typically the central data item. Here is our data type for post. So within this post data type, we have three fields, one for an image that's attached to the post, one for any text content, and also one for a list of comments, which is a relationship to one or more comment records, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So in the design, the process of creating a post and then engaging with it starts with clicking on this button here. So let's jump into the workflow for this. When this button is clicked, we're going to show a pop-up. This pop-up contains a form for the user to fill out and create their post. So here we have a picture uploader for the user to upload an image if they want. We also have a multi-line input so that they can type in their text content. And if they click on publish post, let's go to the workflow here. This is going to do a handful of things behind the scenes here. We're going to create a new post record in the database. Okay, you can see we're mapping those two inputs to those two fields that we know right now. We don't have any comments yet because we're just concerned about creating the record. So content equals the multi-line inputs value, image equals the picture uploader's value. Then we're going to reset the input so that it clears the form. And then we're going to hide the pop-up, right? Basically resetting the entire form so that when they come and create a new post, it's all cleared out for them. They're not seeing any content from a previous post. Now we'll come back to this workflow a little later when we talk about notifications, because part of this is also going to contribute to automatically notifying followers whenever a new post is created. Now, displaying information in the design, we've got a repeating group for this, right? So if we go back into our data set here and look at our posts, these are the 6 posts that we've already created in the database. So we can access that content. So if we wanted to display this information in a more user-friendly way, such as the design that we see here, we're going to use a repeating group for that. Okay, so here we have our repeating group element. Let me go over here so that we can see the structure right here. All right, RG post is what we've called it. The type of content is post, and our data source is a search for posts, and we've sorted it by the creation date. Now, this data source can be manipulated many different ways because you can control which items any given user sees. Maybe they only want to see posts by people they're following. Maybe they only want to see posts with a certain tag or posts that have or don't have an image, right? So adding constraints here is where you can fine tune kind of the preferences of the current user. And you may give your users the option to kind of switch between different types of views. You may want to give them the ability to change the sorting order. All of that is controlled by the functions you see here. So you can create conditions for this. You can give your user more controls in the design so that it can affect those constraints and those sorting options. All right. But at the heart of all of this is this repeating group element that's going to kind of kick things off by providing this data source. Once we're inside of the repeating group, here we have another group just to help with kind of spacing and things. We're just going to display all the information about that cell's post, right? Every individual repeating group cell represents one post at a time. So within these individual elements, we have, for example, the image to display the post's creator's avatar. This is an image field on the user record. Let's jump over to the user data type real quick. Right, the user has an avatar that they can upload whenever they're setting up their own user profile. Notice that they also have name. We'll talk about these other fields here in a moment. We're displaying their username. We're using the built-in slug field to act as the user's username. We have an icon here for triggering other workflows for following and unfollowing. We've also got the time posted. Now I want to take a moment here to address how we've created this calculation. You see how it says a day ago, or in our notifications 6 minutes ago. It's a relative time from the creation date of the thing in question, the post or the comment or the notification, to the current date and time. So we're actually using a plugin for this. We're using a plugin called Relative Time with Moment.js. Free plugin, really easy to work with. It just comes with one visual element that you need to add to your design here called Relative Time. So if you look in our design here, let me pull open this panel here. So we've got that element. It's super tiny. It doesn't actually produce anything visual for the user, so we don't need it to be big to take up any space. But we do need to make sure that technically it is rendered on the page. It is visible here. Notice that we've got this size to a 1 pixel by 1 pixel in dimensions. Now, within the settings of this relative time element, the date we're comparing the current date and time to is going to be the post's creation date. Now, I like to offset this by a couple seconds, so I kind of subtract 2 seconds, so it's 2 seconds before the creation date. I've noticed that when you initially create a new record, the time, it kind of acts as if it's in the future still, so the wording is a little bit off. So for consistency, I actually like to subtract a couple seconds so that it's a bit more accurate for the user. That's more of a personal preference that I've started implementing with this plugin. Once you've configured this date, now your text can then reference that element, that relative time element's current value. And basically the plugin is going to do the work for you in creating a human-friendly wording for how much time has passed. So things like 2 minutes ago or 1 hour ago, 2 days ago, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and create a post so that you can see what it looks like sort of in real time here. So I'm going to click on this button. Again, I'm currently logged in as Monica. I'm going to go ahead and upload an image. Let's upload this picture of these cows here. And I'm going to type in some content. Here is some sample content for my cows photo, like this, and publish. and you can see immediately it's added to the feed. Again, that logic about having it immediately load in is up to you. You know, maybe your posts need approval by an admin of some sort, so you can attach statuses to posts if you'd like. And you can create more of a post management center for the user. They could have drafts, they could edit things, delete things from that center. That's completely up to you. So given that this was my post, as you can see, I can delete this. Going to do that here, click on the button, and it's gone. And over here on the right, you can see we have an image element to display the post image. The benefits of using an image element here is that you have different controls around how that image is rendered. So you have some zoom, rescale, stretch options within the layout. You can also incorporate aspect ratio, things like that, so that you get nice consistent photos and you don't have things distorted in any way. Now we're going to look at the comments feature. This is one of the most popular forms of engagement with social network apps, where other users can type in a comment on a post. You can also implement this to varying degrees. So you can allow sub comments or replies to other comments. You can have mentions within the comments. You can have an approval system so that, you know, moderators can remove a comment or approve it before it actually gets posted publicly. But what we're going to go through is the initial structure, so you can see where to get started and how to create the interactive components in the design. All right, so jumping into the front end here, I just want to show you how the commenting system works in real time. Again, I'm logged in as Monica, so I'm going to make a comment on Rachel's post here. So I'll click on this icon. We have this right side panel that appears. Again, this is just the design that we have in this example. You can, of course, design it in many ways. If you want to show a pop-up for the comment thread, or if you want to expand a group within this cell, you can certainly do that. Or even take the user to a different page if you want. So on the right hand side, I have a multi-line input, and I'm going to type in a comment real quick. I learned a lot, like this. I'll click on this icon. That's going to trigger a workflow to create a comment record. And I have another repeating group over here to display the list of comments. You'll see this kind of pattern here when you're working with a dynamic list of items. A repeating group is typically going to be the element you choose for that. So if I type in another comment, I forgot to say thank you, something like that, and post again. Right now, that's the second comment. Notice that the sort order of the comments is such that the newest is at the top as well. And because this is my own comment, I can delete it. If I were to go to another thread here, any comments that I did not create, you notice that the delete icon is not there. Okay, so jumping into the editor, we're going to start by looking at the data structure of the comment type. It's really important that this is its own type because we have several values that need to be combined together in a unique way. We don't want to add a list of text directly to the post because we wouldn't know how to pair a specific comment with an author, let alone to any other properties you want to attach to a comment, such as a status or, you know, kind of any moderators that need to be a part of it, sub comments, things like that. So a comment being its own thing, its own table, right? If I jump into app data, you can see these are all of the comments. That's going to help you create a more dynamic system here. So in our structure, we have a text field for the actual content of the comment itself, and then a field that relates the comment to the post we are commenting on. So this is a one-to-one relationship. Every comment belongs to one post. On the post side, we actually have the relationship in the other direction. This is a one-to-many relationship here. One post can have more than one comment. And the reason we have the list here on this side is so that we can reduce searches of our database. This creates sort of a shortcut so that we can display the list here a little bit more efficiently, use less workload units for this. Okay, so going over to the design, I'm going to close my panels a little bit so we can get over to the right side. I'm going to take you through the whole flow from the point where the user clicks on this button. Now remember, in our design, our default view is this notification screen, right? I'm actually starting here. It isn't until I click on the comment icon where that screen changes. So on the right side, I do have a hidden group, you can see here, called group comments. That's down below. And this group will only be visible when a custom state has a value. Okay, so by default, you can see that this is not visible on page load, but the condition that makes it visible is when the feed's selected post is not empty. The feed's selected post is not empty. I want to explain this expression here. Feed is the name of my page. Selected post is a custom state that I created on the page. If I go to the property editor for the page here, open up this inspector, you can see there's my custom state, selected post, and the value of this state is a post record. So you can think of this as like a temporary value. This is not being saved in the database. Okay, so again, back to this group. When the page's custom state is not empty, right? There is a value, then it's visible. Doesn't matter which post has been selected, just as long as some post has been selected. So how do we give that custom state a value? That's exactly what this button here is doing. This is a button that has an icon, and the label is going to dynamically show the number of comments attached to this post, right? That's that list field within the post data type, and I'm just counting the number of items in that list. So this is going to say something like 2 or 0, right? It's dynamic. So going over to the workflow for this button, let's click on Edit Workflow here. You can see that all this is doing is setting that custom state. On the page, this is my state, selected post, and the value is going to be the parent group's post. In other words, the post that I'm engaging with here in this particular repeating group cell. And as soon as that has a value, this group becomes visible. And the notifications group goes away. Notice that for notifications, it's the opposite condition. If the custom state has a value, then it is not visible. And we're also going to collapse the element when it's hidden so that the comments group kind of shifts up and takes this space, and we're not left with a big open space here, right? You see that comments is up at the top. Now, I do have a back button inside of the comments group here. And what this is going to do is reverse us back to where we start when we first load the page. So if I edit the workflow on the back button, guess what this is doing? We're setting that same state, but we're essentially clearing the state. We're setting it to blank so that the condition fails for the comments group and it gets hidden again. And then the condition fails for the notifications group and it gets visible again. Okay, so there's our visibility kind of flow that we've created there. All right, now looking at the design within the actual comments group, I'm going to hide here the notifications for a moment. Okay, so like I said earlier, this is a repeating group that we're working with so that we can display all of the comments attached to the selected post. Okay, remember we set the data source for the feed. We're doing a very similar thing here for this repeating group. We're setting the data source, type of content is comment, and the data source here is going to be the feeds selected posts, which is a post, list of comments. Notice that we're not doing a search. I could have done a search, but because I have this list field, it's a bit more direct. It's a little bit of a shortcut. It's reducing the need for a search. And because I know, each of my posts aren't going to have that many comments, it's easily controlled. It's not a high volume of data attached to one record. And so this is going to work very well with me to use a list. But be mindful of workload consumption on your end. Maybe a search is actually more efficient than bloating individual post records with thousands and thousands of comments. Be very mindful. There's definitely a balance you want to strike there. And after I access I point to the list of comments field, I'm then going to sort that list by the creation date so that the newest comment is at the top of the list. And then once I'm inside of the repeating group cell, it's just a matter of displaying all of the details of that one comment record, right? Similar to the post. Now down below, I have a multi-line input so the user can create a new comment. Okay, so once they type that in, they'll click the icon here, and this is also similar to creating a new post. Here we're going to create a new comment. This is just a create a new thing action. If you go to data, create a new thing, you can create a new record of your chosen data type. So we're mapping our content field to the multi-line inputs value, whatever they typed in there. We're also going to relate this comment to the parent group's post. And this icon is sitting inside of a group here that is pulling from that selected post, right? The parent post is the feed selected post. I could have also said feed selected post in this field here in the action. That should give me the exact same result. Be mindful of your references and where your data sources live. And then as a second step, I'm going to make sure I define the relationship on the other side. So I've created that one-to-one relationship between comment and post. Now I'm going to set up the relationship on the other end because Bubble isn't going to do this automatically for me. I'm going to update the post and now add my brand new comment record to the post's list of comments. The list of comments is going to add the result of step 1. From there, I'm going to reset inputs, which is just my multi-line input. And here we're creating a notification, which we'll touch on in just a moment here when we talk about that particular feature. So as soon as the comment exists in the database and has been added to the post's list of comments, it will immediately display in the repeating group up above. Now we're going to look at the likes feature. This is another popular engagement feature that you'll typically find in social network apps. This is a great way to indicate how popular a post might be. And you can also implement, like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. We see that a lot with forums, where discussions are upvoted or downvoted. You can apply that same concept here. But in our example, we're going to be using a thumbs up only to create a number of likes on a post. Now, as I demonstrated before, when I come in here and I click on the like button, it's going to increase the count by 1. You'll see that it fills in the icon as well. If I click on it again, it's going to decrease by 1. So I'm not allowing a user to like a post more than once. Let's take a look at the data structure for how this came together. Now, the way that we've designed this here, and this is definitely not the only way you can manage likes, is that under the user data type, they have a relationship to a list of posts. Under the name here, this field called posts I liked. Okay, this is a list of posts. So every time the user clicks on that like button, it adds that post to this list. Let's go over to the workflow for that here. I'm going to click on this button, edit workflows. You can actually see that I have 2 versions of this particular like button workflow, one to like it, one to unlike it. So if I click on this and the user's field posts I liked already contains the parent group's post, then it's going to modify the user to remove it, right? That's unliking it. If they click on it and it already contains it, then it's going to remove the post. And then the opposite here. If I click on it and that field doesn't contain the post, then that means I now want to add it to my list. Now I'm liking it. Again, we also have another action here for a notification, which we'll get to in a moment. And in the design for this button here, the dynamic label is searching for users where the post exists in their post I liked field. I'm searching for users where the post exists in the post I liked field. And then we're just going to count up the number of users. So that's essentially the number of likes that this post has. Okay. Also notice we have a condition on this button to change the icon just ever so slightly. It fills it in rather than keeps it as an outline. It's just a visual cue for the user to say, hey, you liked this post. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this helpful, take a look at our free extended workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop, where we'll guide you through our 4-phased approach for taking you from idea to app. If you're looking for a complete start to finish guide, you're going to enjoy this workshop. We've got the link on the screen right now and in the description below. Now we're going to look at the follow feature, which works very much like the liking feature. When you toggle on this icon here, the icon changes and it's modifying a single field in the database. So that field lives under the user data type. We have a field here called users I follow. Again, this is a list of users, very similar to posts I liked, which is a list of posts. So as we click on this icon, let's go to the workflow here, right? There's 2 of them. It's going to switch back and forth. So when the user clicks on this and their users I follow doesn't contain the post's creator, then it's going to modify the current user and add the post creator to that list. And then we have the reverse. If it already contains the post creator, then we're going to remove. And in the design, we're just toggling back and forth between 2 icons based on whether the post creator exists in the user's list or not. So we have our default icon, and then we have our opposite icon here for if they are in the list and we want to click to remove. Now notice that we're also hiding the icon if the post creator is ourselves, because we don't want to follow ourselves. So again, I'm logged in as Monica right now. You can see that the icon is hidden here because I shouldn't be able to follow myself. Up at the top, these 2 texts here where we're displaying those counts, The first one is the number of people I am following. So that's just simply counting up the number of items in the list, current users, users I follow, count. And then this is the opposite. I have to find the people who are following me. So I'm going to search for users where I am the person that they are following, right? Or I'm in that list of users that they follow. So we count up the number of those people, and those are my followers. All right, now let's talk about notifications. We've seen this pop up a few times in earlier walkthroughs. So this is another core feature that you'll typically find within social apps because it really speaks to the activity part of it, right? All of the engagement users are going through. And you have a lot of ways to customize preferences around notifications, right? What users receive, whether they clear them out or see a whole history of them, lots of different ways to present the feed of notifications. So as with everything, we're first going to start by looking at the data structure. Okay, so the first thing we have defined here in the data structure is a data type for notification. This has a relationship to a post record, whether you liked a post or commented on a post, or we're just being notified about the fact that a new post was created by somebody that we follow. We need to have this relationship here so that in our notification feed, if we wanted to display information about the post, we can. Then we have a relationship to a user so that we know who is receiving this notification. So you want to look at this from the perspective of one notification per person, because every user is going to be able to customize what kind of notifications they receive. And also we need to know whether they've seen it or not. We do have a feature here where, if a new notification appears in their feed, the user can remove it by marking it as seen or just making it not bold, depending on how you want to keep track of the history here. That part's completely up to you. And then we have a field that relates our notification to an option set. Over here we have a set called notification type. And here are the three different types of notifications: new comment, new like, new post, that the user can choose to enable so that if they don't want to see certain notifications, it gets ignored and it doesn't come up in their feed. So these three choices are going to help us with certain settings and in our design to show, the right icon, for example, right? I can see that this is a comment, a new comment notification versus this is a new like notification. So in the data structure, under the data type, I have a relationship to the option set so that every notification is one of these three here. If I jump over to my app data and see the notifications I have just from this perspective, notice all of these notifications are defined by a specific type. Some of them have been seen, some of them not. We have specific recipients. They're also tied to a certain post, right? This is sort of the raw view, and then we've designed it in a specific way for the user on the front end. Okay, so let's first actually look at how does the user indicate which notification types they want to see. Well, we've got this little settings pop-up here. If I click on my menu button, I've got a pop-up for the user to toggle on or off these types. Okay, so enable notifications for the following. So what I'm using here is a repeating group that displays those three choices from my option set. And I'm able to toggle on and off by just clicking on this button here, and we're going to be running a couple workflows behind the scenes to create this design and actually save these preferences to the user. So the other part of this is that under the user data type, we have this field right here, enabled notifications. So this is a list of notification types that they're choosing to turn on from this settings window. And that's ultimately going to lead to which notifications actually display here in their feed. Okay, or which notification records get created when the event occurs. So in our settings pop-up, let's open up our panel here so we can see those workflows. I have my repeating group of my option set choices, all of my notification types. It's just three that I have here. And inside I have a button with the toggle off icon being the default. The label for the button is simply going to display the notification type. And then whenever in the condition, if we can see that the current user's enabled notifications field contains the current cells type, then we change the appearance just a little bit. So we're going to change the icon to a toggle on icon with the icon filled in, and we're also changing the font color. Now the workflow is basically responsible for adding or removing this type from the user's enabled notifications list. Very similar to the liked functionality, right? So we've got two workflows here. If the user clicks on the button and their enabled notifications list field doesn't contain this type, then we're going to modify the user and add the cell's type to that field. And then we have the reverse. If it already contains that type, there's the condition, then we're going to remove the type from the user's list field. Okay. Now this list field, the enabled notifications, is what will dictate which notification records actually get created. So let's go back to the like workflow over here. Okay, so someone has liked a post. Okay, so they're gonna have that post added to their list field for likes. That is the person who actually clicked on the button. But we now want to create a notification for the creator of the post so that they can be notified, hey, your post just got a new like. Now there's a bunch of conditions here because we don't always want to do this. We only want to create a notification if the following is true. The post creator is not the current user, right? I don't want to receive a notification if I liked my own post. We're allowing the users to like their own post, but I don't need to receive a notification if I liked my own post. So we're going to ignore this if the creator of the post is the same as the current user. So in order to create the notification, it has to be a different person. And the post creator, in other words, the notifications recipient, has new likes enabled for the notifications they want to receive, right? And the parent group's post creators enabled notifications contains new like. And this is, I'm just selecting from my option set choice here. It's a nice benefit of using option sets is that Bubble kind of bakes in your choices into your dynamic list of choices in this window. So this is specifically for the likes piece. So if all of those conditions are true, then we create the record, we relate the notification to the parent group's post. This is the parent in relationship to the like button. The recipient is the post creator, and the type of notification is new like. Now this field right here, the notification type, again, that's to help with the icon that we display in our design. Okay, so once the notification is created, then it can show up in the repeating group that we have on the right hand side. So I'm going to open up this design so we can see this right here. Again, another repeating group for a dynamic list of choices, just like this. Okay, so here's my data source. The type of content is notification. We're searching for notifications where the current user is the recipient, right? I only care about seeing notifications specifically for me. And the newest notifications at the top. I don't want to see notifications for other people. So this constraint's very important. And in the design of the cell, I have this icon here. By default, it's a little post icon if the notification is a new post. But in the condition, I'm changing the icon. If the notifications type is new like, then the icon's going to show a thumbs up. If it's new comment, then it'll show a little comment window. It's just a visual cue to help the user understand what type of notification it is. I could have added to this design and actually said the words, you know, new like, new comment, things like that. I could have also had more information about the post. Let's say the posts have titles or other dates, or I could maybe show like a little mini image of the post image if I wanted. So there's a lot of other things that you can display here if you want, or if you have a fuller notification page. And as you can see, I have yet another relative time element to show how much time has passed since this notification was created. Okay. Now, by default, every single notification that gets created is going to be marked as unseen. So notice here I have this value as the default. Every new notification is not seen. So in the design, my username and the time posted, by default, they're going to have a bold setting. But in the condition, once the notification has been marked as seen, in other words, seen is yes, we're going to remove that bold setting. So it's just another visual indicator for the user. This button, mark as seen, is going to be responsible for changing that seen value from no to yes. So if I click on this button's workflow here, I'm going to make a change to a list of notifications. I'm updating all of the notifications in that repeating group. Notice here the list to change, RG notifications is just the name of my element, my repeating group. The list of notifications, seen equals yes. It will modify all of those records, seen equals yes. So this is specifically a data action for a list of items. And the other thing in the design here is that you can have individual mark as seen buttons or icons within the cell. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. So if you want to do this one by one, then you would just make a change to the cells notification and that's it. So that's completely up to you. The other thing that you can do is you can actually filter out from the repeating group any notifications that have been seen so that they don't stay in this list here at like a history feed. So if you add another constraint where seen equals no, then you're only going to see new notifications or unseen notifications in this list. As soon as it's marked as seen, it gets filtered out. So that's another approach that you can take for that. Now let's look at the workflow for when a new comment has been added. So I believe that is, let's go to our shortcut, create a new comment right here. So at the end, we have a very similar situation. We're only creating a notification for new comment as long as the post creator is not the current user and the post creator, in other words, the recipient of this notification, has actually enabled notifications for a new comment. If they did not enable, which means that this type would not be in the list, it fails the condition, so the notification record just does not get created, doesn't appear in their feed. Okay, so very similar to the like. Now, creating notifications for a new post is a little different because we could have more than one recipient. And because of that, we actually need to involve our backend workflows. So the way that we are designing this is that if I enable new post, that means that I want to receive notifications for any new post by someone I'm following. And a user could have many followers. So whenever they create a new post, all of their followers need to be recipients, but we need to create a separate notification per follower, right? Because it needs to be independent. They need to be able to mark it as seen on their own. We don't want one person's mark as seen to dictate other people's mark as seen, right? So we need to create potentially multiple records. So when the new post has been created, what we're going to do is actually schedule a backend workflow. I have this terminate action in here for now because my example app is on a free plan, so I can't really trigger a backend workflow. That feature is not available to me, but I can show you how to set it up. Okay, so ignore the terminate. You wouldn't want to terminate, otherwise it won't run. But you will want to enable your backend workflows if you haven't already. So you'll go into your settings, go to the API tab, and turn on the backend workflows by checking this box right here, okay? And then you're gonna have the backend workflows section in your page drop-down list, all right? So it's very similar to page level workflows. I'm gonna create a new API workflow here, right? This is just a normal API workflow. Give it a name. I'm calling mine post notification. And then I have two parameters so that it can receive information from the page that's ultimately triggering this flow. I need to know the post involved, right? The new post that was created, and I need to know the individual recipient that we're creating this notification for, post and user. So from here, I can create a new notification record and fill in all three details. The post equals whatever post value is coming in through my parameter, the recipient equals whatever user is coming in from my parameter, and the type is going to be hard-coded to new post. This is specifically for the new post scenario, right? So imagine this flow is running once per notification. So if there's 30 followers, this will run 30 times, creating 30 separate notification records, one for each follower. So back in the workflow, when we create that new post, we're going to schedule that backend workflow on the list of followers. So you can find this under custom events, schedule API workflow on a list. Okay, that's the action that we have here. The list we're running this on is a list of users, and the specific list is, we're going to find them. We're going to do search for users who first of all have enabled this new post notification. We want to ignore anybody who doesn't even want to receive this notification. And the current user is in that user's following list, right? I want to target anybody who is following me. These are all of my followers, right? Okay, so we're going to trigger the backend workflow, and then here are those two parameters. The post in question is the result of step one. That's our brand new post. And then the user, which is the recipient, is going to be this user. So this value will be different for each run. And we want this to happen immediately. There's no reason for this to have a delay, so we're going to schedule it to happen right now, current date and time. Now we're going to look at a couple ways you can share posts from within your social network app to the outside world, whether it's through just a link that you copied or to an email address, or to a specific other social network, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, things like that. So what we've implemented here is when I click on this share button, it's going to open up a pop-up to show me an input with a unique link to this post's basically permanent page. Sharing this link to an external user wouldn't take them to this dashboard, right, where they would need to be logged in to see this info, but rather it takes them to a separate post page where the only content they see is that one post that I'm sharing. You can implement this, however you need in terms of what specific URL you want to take a user to. But the point is that we have an input here with something for them to grab. We also have a little shortcut button to copy to clipboard, showing an alert message there. You can see if I paste, there's my unique link here. And the way that we've accomplished this here is with a plugin for that copy to clipboard. So the plugin that I'm using is Air Copy to Clipboard. There's a handful of them out there. It's a very lightweight type of function. They all basically do the same thing. And you can see that this comes with an action, which we are using copy to clipboard from static text. That's the one that we're using, copy to clipboard from static text. So in our design, we have an input with a URL that we've composed. And when we click on the button, the workflow that we're triggering is that same URL. So I've reconstructed it here. I could have also referred to the inputs value. It would have just fed that into this action as well. And then notice that I'm showing an alert message. Now, this particular URL is just an example. So I have my base domain. I have typed in the word post, indicating that I have a page in my application called post. And then we're also including in the path here the unique ID of that post. So in reality, in order for this to work properly, you would need a page called post, and it would need to be set up as a dynamic page where the type of content at the page level can receive a post record. That way, everything you design and display on that page is just going to pull from that page level data source. All right, so this is sharing that external URL just to your clipboard. Then you can paste it in, in email, in a Slack message, on another social networks feed, whatever you want to do with that. Aside from the copy to clipboard approach, you can also have an integration with a share button service. This is one of them. There are others. I'm looking at this one simply because this is a Bubble published plugin, but they all work very similar. This is using the service called Add to Any. And what this gives you is a single element called share buttons. And I'm going to show you what that element looks like here. So if I add to my design share buttons, I'm just going to place it here kind of big there. You can see that you can provide the URL that you want to share and then a name, and then you can enable specific buttons to display as shortcuts for the user to select, and it will essentially get you started with a new LinkedIn post or a new email or a new Facebook post. You also have the ability to include a generic button which exposes a bunch of different services all at once. So I'm going to show you what this looks like here. The URL right now is just a Bubble URL by default. So for example, if I go to LinkedIn, you can see that it's going to open up. First of all, I do need to be signed into LinkedIn, but it would essentially get me started with a new LinkedIn post. And it does it for everything. If I go to X, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to ask me to log in. If I was already logged in, notice that it's starting a tweet here for me to share that URL in the configuration. If I click on the plus, you can see that I have access to all of these different services to include. So it's a nice shortcut if your application has content that's very shareable to many other platforms. Okay, but that's up to you if you want to include that. Otherwise, a very simple copy to clipboard for a URL absolutely gets the job done, so that you can share it however your user can share it however they need. All right, I hope this was helpful. And if it was, the content you're about to see on the next screen will help you take things even further.